On September 16, 2023, a new force emerged in the heart of Africa's Sahel region. Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, three countries grappling with a tide of violence and instability, announced the formation of the Alliance of Sahel States. This new alliance, a pact of mutual defense, sent a clear message. These nations were ready to take their security into their own hands. The alliance, enshrined in a formal charter, pledged military and economic cooperation to combat the shared threat of armed rebellion and external aggression. An attack on one member would be considered an attack on all. The Sahel, a semi-arid band stretching across Africa just south of the Sahara Desert, has become synonymous with instability, poverty, and violence. The region has been plagued by droughts, famines, and ethnic conflicts for decades. But in recent years, a new threat has emerged: the rise of armed groups linked to Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State. These groups have exploited the region's poverty, weak governance, and porous borders to establish safe havens and launch attacks across the Sahel and beyond. The formation of the Alliance of Sahel States marked a significant shift in the regional security landscape. It signaled a growing frustration with the perceived failures of international interventions and a desire for greater regional ownership over security matters. But the alliance also raised questions about its ability to succeed where others had failed. Could this new coalition effectively combat the complex and deeply rooted challenges facing the Sahel? The answer to this question, like the future of the Sahel itself, remained uncertain. But the formation of the Alliance of Sahel States represented a bold and potentially transformative development in the region's long and troubled history. At the heart of the Sahel Security Alliance lies a geographical reality: the Liptako-Gourma region. This remote and sparsely populated area, where the borders of Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso converge, has become a breeding ground for instability. Armed groups, drawn by the region's lack of governance and its porous borders, have established a firm foothold. They operate with impunity, terrorizing local populations and launching attacks on government forces and civilians alike. The Liptako-Gourma region is a microcosm of the challenges facing the Sahel. It is a region plagued by poverty, drought, and ethnic tensions. These factors, combined with the presence of vast, ungoverned spaces, have created a fertile ground for extremism and violence. The region's location, at the crossroads of several countries, makes it an ideal base for armed groups seeking to operate across borders and evade capture. The Alliance of Sahel States has identified the Liptako-Gourma region as its primary focus. The alliance's charter explicitly states its intention to coordinate military operations and intelligence sharing to combat the threat posed by armed groups in this volatile region. The goal is to restore stability to the area, protect local populations, and disrupt the activities of these groups. The success or failure of the Sahel Security Alliance will likely hinge on its ability to effectively address the challenges in the Liptako-Gourma region. If the alliance can establish a meaningful presence in this remote and volatile area, disrupt the activities of armed groups, and provide security for local populations, it will have taken a significant step towards achieving its objectives. The formation of the Sahel Security Alliance cannot be separated from the wave of political upheaval that has swept across the region in recent years. Since 2020, each of the three member states, Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, has experienced at least one military coup. These coups, driven by a complex interplay of factors including frustration with government corruption, dissatisfaction with the handling of the security situation, and the influence of external actors, have profoundly shaken the region's political landscape. These coups have had far-reaching consequences, both domestically and internationally. Domestically, they have led to political instability, uncertainty, and a rollback of democratic gains. The legitimacy of the military governments has been questioned, leading to protests and unrest. Internationally, the coups have strained relations with traditional partners, particularly France, the former colonial power in the region. The series of coups in the Sahel has created a complex and volatile environment. The new military governments, often facing internal opposition and external pressure, have been forced to navigate a treacherous landscape. Their commitment to democratic principles and human rights has been questioned, and their ability to effectively address the root causes of the region's instability remains to be seen. The Sahel Security Alliance, born out of this tumultuous backdrop, represents both a response to and a product of this instability. the alliance can be seen as a way for these military governments to assert their regional leadership, demonstrate their commitment to security, and seek legitimacy in the eyes of their populations and the international community. The formation of the Sahel Security Alliance is as much about what it represents as what it aims to achieve. It symbolizes a definitive shift in the regional security dynamics, particularly a growing rift between the Sahel states and France, their longtime ally and security guarantor. For decades, France has played a leading role in the Sahel, providing military assistance, development aid, and political support. However, the relationship has become increasingly strained in recent years, fueled by a perception among some in the Sahel that France's intervention has failed to bring stability and has instead perpetuated a cycle of dependence. The coup in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger further exacerbated tensions with France. Paris condemned the military takeovers, suspended military cooperation, and imposed sanctions. In response, the new military governments adopted a more assertive posture towards France, demanding a reassessment of the relationship and greater respect for their sovereignty. The expulsion of French troops from Mali and Burkina Faso, coupled with the call for the withdrawal of French forces from Niger, underscored the depth of the rift. This break with France reflects a broader trend of growing anti-French sentiment in the Sahel. This sentiment is rooted in a complex mix of historical grievances, resentment over France's continued economic and political influence, and accusations of neocolonialism. The perception that France has prioritized its own interests over those of the Sahel, particularly in the fight against terrorism, has fueled this resentment. The Sahel Security Alliance, therefore, can be seen as an attempt by these countries to chart a new course, one that prioritizes regional solutions and reduces reliance on external actors. Whether this new approach will prove more successful than previous efforts remains to be seen. The Sahel Security Alliance's formation comes at a time when one of its member states, Mali, is facing a resurgence of violence. Despite the presence of international peacekeeping forces and years of efforts to bring peace, the country has been grappling with a resurgence of fighting, particularly in the north. This renewed conflict involving predominantly Tuareg armed groups has jeopardized the fragile peace agreement signed in 2015 and threatens to further destabilize the country and the wider region. The resurgence of violence in Mali is a stark reminder of the deep-seated challenges facing the Sahel. It highlights the limitations of military solutions and the need for inclusive political dialogue to address the root causes of conflict. The fragile peace process in Mali, which had offered a glimmer of hope for the country and the region, is now hanging by a thread. The renewed fighting in Mali poses a significant challenge for the Sahel Security Alliance. It adds another layer of complexity to the already volatile security environment, and raises questions about the alliance's ability to effectively address the multifaceted challenges facing the region. The alliance will need to carefully navigate the situation in Mali, balancing its commitment to supporting the Malian government with the need to avoid actions that could further escalate the conflict. The situation in Mali underscores the need for a comprehensive approach to address the crisis in the Sahel, one that goes beyond military solutions and addresses the underlying political, economic, and social drivers of conflict. The Sahel Security Alliance, if it is to succeed, must recognize the interconnectedness of these challenges and adopt a holistic strategy that addresses both the symptoms and the root causes of instability. The Sahel Security Alliance is not the first attempt at regional cooperation to address the security challenges in the Sahel. In 2014, the G5 Sahel, a regional organization comprising Burkina Faso, Chad, Mali, Mauritania, and Niger, was created to foster economic development and regional integration. However, faced with the growing threat of terrorism and transnational organized crime, the G5 Sahel shifted its focus to security, establishing a joint military force in 2017. The G5 Sahel Joint Force, envisioned as a regional response to transnational security threats, struggled to achieve its objectives. It was plagued by logistical challenges, funding shortfalls, coordination problems, and a lack of political will from some member states. The force's effectiveness was also hampered by the vast and challenging terrain in which it operated, and the fluid nature of the enemy it faced. The Sahel Security Alliance, though building upon the concept of regional cooperation, distinguishes itself from the G5 Sahel in several key aspects. First, it involves a smaller group of countries, allowing for potentially greater cohesion and coordination. Second, the alliance appears to prioritize political alignment and shared security concerns, as evidenced by the recent coups and the shared stance against French military presence. Third, the alliance emphasizes self-reliance and a reduced dependence on external partners, marking a departure from the G5 Sahel's reliance on international support. The Sahel Security Alliance, learning from the shortcomings of its predecessor, will need to address the challenges that hampered the G5 Sahel Joint Force. It must ensure adequate funding, improve operational coordination, and foster genuine political will among its member states. The alliance's success will depend on its ability to overcome these hurdles and establish an effective and sustainable security architecture in the region.